As a 2020 graduate, I know exactly how difficult it may be to go to school during a pandemic. On this episode of The Lounge, we're going to talk to two different students about their experience of finding that sense of belonging, becoming, and being here on campus at UW Madison. Let's open The Lounge. Welcome to The Lounge. Here on The Lounge, we're going to introduce you to different opportunities here on campus, as well as introduce you to different people who are working with students behind the scenes that you may not see all the time. But on today's episode, I, your host, Payton, am going to talk with two different students. We have a graduating senior, Calli Hughes, and we also have a first-year international student, Takumu Ogama. Thank you both for being here with me today. Let's just jump right into it. So, here in student affairs, a few things we try to focus on is that sense of belonging, becoming, and being. And with it being a pandemic, I know you all weren't able to really see people all the time and build that sense of community. Calli, can you tell me how it may have been a little difficult to find that sense of belonging here on campus?
Yeah, definitely. I would say I really valued the importance of connecting with people the first day I was on campus prior to the pandemic, and that came through in-person interactions. And so with everything being virtual, you really had to change your approach on how you met people. I still remember one of my best friends I met at an in-person office hours for computer science. And we would just sit there for hours working together, and you wouldn't get that anymore. And so now I think the biggest struggle to find that sense of belonging is, even just your body language and the way that you're being inclusive to people in that capacity. And also deciding who and what you want to prioritize is really hard. I think we've all hit our max. And so, how are you going to prioritize that sense of belonging when you have other things to focus on as well?
And Takumu, you came here to UW-Madison for the first time during the pandemic, so you didn't really get that Wisconsin experience. What's one piece of advice you would give a student coming next semester when they're kind of searching for that sense of belonging here?
Yes. In terms of belonging, for me, one of the critical elements is getting connected with people. So coming to UW-Madison made new people besides my academics. So before I transferred here, the way to meet new people is more like everything is through in-person interactions, such as student activities, in-person classes, and student organizations. However, during this year, it's been tough to deal with different situations since everything is done virtually. Also, from my experience, I could not have many opportunities to meet new people since I tried really hard to avoid getting the virus while I wanted to find myself on campus. So I would say that the challenges that this regular year has created or not just all about different ways to communicate and stay connected with people, but also about how to cope with the stress come from restricting and ruling our standards of belonging on campus.
Thank you both. And I also kind of want to play to the dynamic of Calli, you being a graduating senior, and Takumu, this being your first year. So Calli, with you experiencing UW both during the traditional semester and also during the pandemic, what's one piece of advice that you would give Takumu for next semester as he transitions to a more in-person UW experience?
Yeah, the piece of advice I would give is to understand your independence and understanding your self-worth. That's something that I think self-reflection is super key with both of those things. And the pandemic has really brought that to light for myself. And with that, if you understand independence and self-worth, you'll have better relationships, you'll make a better partner, a better peer, a better friend, and you allow yourself to understand your values, your boundaries, and your expectations a bit better. And your relationships, I think, will thrive a lot more when you are in those group settings post-pandemic as well.
And Takumu, what's a piece of advice you would give a first-year student coming here next semester, having had one semester under your belt? What's a piece of advice you would give?
Yes, as I said earlier, it was really challenging to stay closely connected with people, even though it is critical to find your partners to study and hang out with. So it was just like getting out of my comfort zone every single day. I have a bunch of advice, but let me like bring up a couple of my thoughts. So first and foremost, I try to utilize the resources that the university offers. I believe it is like one of the easiest ways to find yourself on campus, such as tutoring, on-campus jobs, and student organizations. You can easily find it online, and also you can talk with their academic advisor as well. That's actually what I did. And also, I'm sure that like you'll be able to find some of the resources helpful to you. One more thing that I want to mention is not as practical as the first one, but essential. So please take care of yourself more than before. Um, so first year without COVID-19 should be stressful itself, like since you'll encounter new world, like new places, new people. You may feel overwhelmed and exhausted pretty often. Like with a pandemic, it could be even worse. Therefore, to keep yourself on the right track in terms of your academics, paying attention to your health will be very important.
And lastly, I kind of just want to do a fun question. So a lot of times we hear people say like, back in my day, something was like this. So Calli, what is your back in my day when I went to college during a pandemic story?
Yeah, the story that always comes to mind that really encompasses the pandemic for me and my experiences is when I was abroad. I was studying abroad in Australia in Townsville, and we were told via email that we were going to be sent home soon. And so my friend Emily and I decided to go to Cairns to do the Great Barrier Reef in our last couple moments that we could together. And I didn't tell my parents, and I knew that they would be mad, and so I didn't tell them, just in the hopes that it would all work out great. My flight was a week from then. I had plenty of time, had lots of time to hang out with my friend Emily and do all the things we wanted to do. Then at like 3 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call. We were staying at a hostel. I woke up and grabbed my phone, crawled out of bed, and sunburnt and all from the goggles. And I answered my phone. My mom had told me that my flight was canceled home, and they had to rebook it on the only flight that was available from Townsville, where I should be, back to the States. And everything kept getting canceled. This is my last chance to get home. And I had to break the news to my mom that I had lied to her and I wasn't in the city that I needed to be in order to leave in 6 hours to go home. And overall, it really was a fun time. It really scared me, got the adrenaline going, but it truly was encompassing of the pandemic.
Wow, that's a great story. Takumu, what would you say is your during my time when I was in college in a pandemic story?
Yeah, like I don't have a really funny story, but like I want to answer this question from my like perspective as an international student. So I'm from Japan, and then like I couldn't go back to like my home. I couldn't go back to my home during like last winter, even though I was planning to. So I first figured out like how precious my friends and my family back in home, also in the United States, are. As I had much time, I tend to think of like myself as a college student and a 22-year-old adult. So in other words, the pandemic allowed me to recall the 22 years of my life that I lived in the past. Additionally, like it has been the time to reconsider my future, like what I want to be after graduation, or like what I want to do after graduation. So I could say that I appreciate the pandemic actually provided me an opportunity to keep myself progressing, even though it's been rough in terms of my academics. So the pandemic is generally considered like really bad situation. However, it was essential for my college life. So yeah, that would be my story.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining me, and I also want to wish you both well, Takumu, as you go into next semester, and Calli, as you take a trip to New Zealand for the summer. That's awesome. Wish I could do that. But I want to wish you both well, and for everyone out there watching, I want to congratulate you because at this point you have officially finished strong. So now it's time to close the lounge.